bodies clash. 53, the chosen few. Fall, rise, what's coming for you? Coach's wrath with decision. Quick start of ambition. Starter's name for your forward. Legends bleed, dark endured. Cut down, rise up. Brutal fate, iron will dominate. Final 53, supreme force. The down, rise up. Brutal fate, iron will dominate. Final 53, supreme force. Destiny's brutal, no remorse. Pre-season's end, battlefield clear. Host demise, driven by fear. Heroes born, others broken. Whispers of power, words unspoken. Victory gods, demand sacrifice. Victory's altar, golden as ice. Chosen ones, their spirits blaze. Crushed, breathe, ignited rage. Cut down, rise up, brutal fate. Iron will dominate. Final 53, supreme force. Destiny's brutal, no remorse. No remorse. No remorse. Cut down, rise up, brutal fate, iron will dominate. Final 53, supreme force. Destiny's brutal, no remorse. No remorse. No remorse. No remorse. No remorse.
And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Welcome, Huddle listeners and fans. This is RBLR Sports with you with the RBLR crew. Just like a team strategizing before a big game, we're here to huddle up into all things Tampa Bay as the regular season approaches. Week 2 of the preseason is in the books, and well, we came out with the loss. And yeah, it stings, but with 2 games behind us, we're starting to figure things out. I guess a big step up from 2 weeks ago when we were all asking, what are the real positional battles? Are we ever going to see Randy Gregory play a game? Well, this is the NFL. I'll leave it at that. And I'll tell you this Bucs team is evolving, and you never know. We might see something wild, like Jake Camarda lining up at wide receiver and scoring 5 touchdowns, sending fans scrambling online for Bucs merch at shop.rblrsports.com because all the Tampa Bay stores are sold out. All right, on the real though, if this is your first podcast journey with us, don't forget to like and subscribe. And whether you're a first-timer or a seasoned listener, if you got thoughts or questions while you're watching, be sure to comment below with your hot takes or inquiries. Now, as we look ahead, our final preseason game against Miami is just around the corner. And I think of it as a final play in a nail-biting game packed with all the drama and excitement of a game-winning touchdown. But before we hit that field, I want to take a moment to recap what we've seen so far. So we've got plenty of updates to break down that will keep you on the edge of your seat, along with some news that might surprise you or might not. But all I got to say is get ready, folks, because this season is going to it's shaping up to be a good one, I think, honestly. We got a lot of moves done in the offseason, so super optimistic. And as always, folks, joining me are my fantastic co-captains. To my right, stepping to the spotlight with the flair of a gourmet chef at a high-end bistro, ready to serve up sizzling insights and thought-provoking commentary. Mr. Zach Blaine, how's everything shaping up?
Man, it's shaping up nice. I apologize ahead of time if there's an echo. We just moved into a new house, so my office is kind of bare. You just got to bear with me.
Not a problem at all. Congrats again, Zach.
Thank you. Thank you.
And to my left, steering the airwaves with unyielding fire and a treasure trove of football savvy. He's the fiercest playmaker on the high seas. Mr. Carter Brantley, how are the tides treating you, my friend?
Oh, they're treating me. They're doing something. I don't know how to describe that one, but no, I'm doing well. I'm doing all right. Another week, same soup, just reheated type beat. How about you, Musab? How are you, my man? How are you doing?
Oh man, I'm doing well. I wanted to go with the Captain Carter, but I wanted to change it up a little bit, but I still
For
want,
sure.
somewhat piratey ocean theme or something. But overall I'm doing fine. Obviously another week down in the book. So, it's always nice, being able to compare these guys from week 1 to week 2. But hey man, another week closer to the regular season, another week closer to my fantasy football draft. And I'll tell you this, man. I think this was the last weekend. I think I saw this on Facebook. This is the last weekend before. This is the last weekend until like February that we're not gonna have any kind of football, whether it be college football or NFL. So that's also got me pretty hyped.
Heck yeah, man. That's pretty exciting. I'm pretty excited for that for sure. That should be a lot of fun. But before we get too far into it, like Musab said, unfortunately the Bucks took a 20-7 L against the Jaguars in Jacksonville this past weekend. It's a preseason game, not a whole lot to really talk about, but I figured we'd talk about some things that maybe stood out. I'll kick things off. Jose Ramirez had 3 sacks. No, he's not just an all-star third baseman for the Cleveland Guardians. He's also an edge rusher for the Bucks. No, he looked great. He was really fun. I think there was one that was kind of a weird, like he just kind of tripped the quarterback, like maybe on accident. So maybe it was more like 2 deserved sacks, but we won't get into all that. It's for sure. Absolutely. But yeah, I thought that was a lot of fun, especially since we'll get into the Randy Gregory stuff. But yeah, I thought it was fun to note that. Was there anything else that stood out to y'all? Zach, I'll start with you, my man. What stood out from this past week?
I mean, the running game looked good again.
Hey,
I'm excited to see it, and now I think, granted, I know it's the preseason. I know we're going against second, third, fourth stringers, but if God forbid it continues like this in the regular season, I think this is going to be what tells us if Rachaad White is a number 1 running back or not, like a number 1 option at running back. So it's exciting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bucky Irving could come up and snatch that position right away from him, and then Rachaad turns into more of the scat back that he's so good at being. So yeah, that'll be really interesting to watch moving forward. Sean Tucker as well, obviously had a nice week. But Mr. Tariq, how about you, man? What's something that stood out from this Jaguars Bucks preseason game?
Gentlemen, I got to say, the thing that kind of stood out to me was I feel like we just got dominated on both ends of the ball. I mean, the Jaguars were controlling the whole game. And I mean, sure, there always see some nice things that, we saw from our Buccaneers. But overall, I mean, I kind of felt like it was kind of just a battle of who has a better JV squad. You know what I'm saying? And our JV team sucks compared to theirs. But I mean, again, we did have some good things, as you mentioned already. Jose Ramirez, our run game looks solid. But I don't know. I just felt like, I mean, things like, for example, like the Jaguars' third down conversion, I think was a lot better than ours. I'll tell you that. So to summarize it all, sure, we did good. It was nice seeing some of these backups standing out a little bit. But overall, the Jags kind of had that time of possession advantage, and we didn't do anything special at all, especially after I think like the first or second quarter. But yeah, that's about it though. It's preseason, so
For sure.
not take it lightly.
Yeah, I mean, it was Kyle Trask and Mr. Wolford. They both looked, a little rough. Wolford got banged up at the end. Hopefully he's doing all right. It'll be interesting to see how his injury situation plays out. I haven't really heard about any updates, but it's a big update from the Bucks. They kind of officially announced today. It was kind of already set in stone that Graham Barton was the starter. I mean, I don't want to say set in stone, but it was already pretty much in the works. Like that wasn't really a surprise. I think that was kind of expected. But Ben Bredesen, he is now their starting left guard. I was a bit surprised to see them make that decision with a game left. But then again, they're trying to. I'd imagine they maybe give Baker and the first team maybe a drive or two in that week 3 game, the final preseason game, as sort of a ramp up. So maybe they wanted to solidify this offensive line and just say, hey, here's what y'all got. Here's what we're working with. Things could change in the regular season, obviously, but this is what we're starting with. So I thought it was kind of interesting, but, probably the right move. They brought in Bredesen from the Giants. They signed him to a free agency deal that was, not super pricey, but I think it was $4.5 million. So it was nice to see them kind of solidify their interior since it was kind of a question mark. What are y'all's thoughts on this? I mean, Bredesen and Barton are the 2 guards, and I think Cody Mauch might be the 3rd. I didn't see an official name for that 3rd spot, but Mr. Tariq, what are your thoughts on this interior offensive line? Their starters being named.
Yeah, I mean, this was expected. I mean, like, if not Bredesen, I guess my question is for y'all is then who?
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
Because I don't know much about Xavier Delgado. I'll tell you that.
For sure.
No, Xavier Delgado. Come on, man.
Yeah. So, no, I mean, it's nothing surprising. What I am curious to see, though, is Cody Mauch versus Elijah Klein, just because I feel like we have some expectations now from Cody, being that it's his 2nd year, and for a late round pick, Elijah Klein ain't doing so bad. So we'll see how that goes. But I don't know. I feel like some things we should just kind of get all set in stone already. And I think having naming Barton as center it's good. And I think I'll tell you this. I mean, we'll talk about it soon. But I can see a huge difference between him and Hainsey.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Blaine, how about you, man? What were your thoughts on this announcement from the Bucks?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a shocker. Like, you don't draft a 1st-round guy to have him sit behind somebody, especially in a position like the O-line. Like, you draft the 1st-round O-lineman, he's starting for you day one. So I kind of expected it. I don't know that I would jump as far as to say we can see a huge improvement over Hainsey yet because we haven't seen him in a regular season game. I don't get me wrong. I think he's going to be better than Hainsey. Like, I'm not saying that's hard to do, but I'm not saying don't look too much into it, I guess, is what I'm saying right now, because we still have to play the ones a whole game. You know what I mean? As far as Bredesen, I think it would have been interesting to see what was his name? Suo Peta. Had Opeta stayed healthy, from what I was reading, he was tearing up the training camp. So I think with Bredesen and Opeta both in, I think it would have been interesting to see what happens with Mauch, because Mauch was a 2nd-round pick, if I'm not mistaken. So to see that high of a draft pick at that point, probably not have a spot if they both stayed healthy, to me is something that is more intriguing than the fact that Bredesen's actually starting.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a situation to monitor, but I don't know. I'm not. It's only year 2 for the Cody Mauch experience, if you will. Luke Gadecki, I mean, it took a position change for him to make the jump, but he did make a significant jump in year 2, and I know that shifting back to the position that he was most comfortable with probably had a lot to do with it. But it was also getting a year under his belt in the NFL, maybe taking a training camp or an off season rather to realize, hey, this is the work that is required to succeed at the NFL. Yeah. So maybe Cody Mauch needed that. That's what I'm hopeful for, at least. Obviously, we will see. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't work out. Because very often it doesn't in the NFL. That's just the nature of the business. But who knows? Crazier things have happened. But I wanted to move to we're almost done with the preseason. I know it's kind of been flying by, but is there a favorite player that y'all have had in your mind? Like, who's your favorite player that you've gotten the pleasure or the chance to watch this preseason for the Bucks? Mr. Blaine, I'll throw it right back at you.
I mean, I feel like, I hate to say it because he's a Duck, but Bucky Irving has been so much fun to watch. Like,
no, for sure.
I like his vision and just everything that I've seen from him. I really like, and I hate it because I hate the Ducks. But I feel like he's going to be so solid. And then another one is Miller, the wide receiver.
Oh, okay.
Ryan Miller, yeah.
Never
Yeah.
knew who he was up until this preseason. Never heard of him, and he's been, he's a sneaky 53-man guy. If I like, I'm not saying it's going to happen for sure, but I wouldn't be shocked to see him on the 53-man.
Yeah, I mean the wide receiver position has kind of a we'll get into it in the second half of our episode, but yeah, it's certainly an interesting proposition with the wide receiver room being what it is. There are a lot of young guys that could have a chance to maybe sneak in there, but we'll get into that. But love the Bucky Irving shout out. He's been really fun. I'm probably going to go with Elijah Klein or Kayvon Merriweather. Both of them have been kind of pleasantly like, oh, like these guys could be competent backups. And I don't think that either one of them being that was a given going into this offseason or this preseason. So I think, like, obviously you don't want either of them starting. Like, I'm not saying that, they're not going to come for anyone's jobs, but I'm not going to feel nauseous if either one of them have to see the field at any point in the regular season. Like, it's like, oh, well, hopefully they're not out there too long, but hey, that's all right. I'm not super upset about it. So yeah, Klein's been holding it down in the middle, and Merriweather had a really good first preseason game. Had a nice pass breakup in there. So he did a really nice job. Mr. Treek, how about you, my man? Who's been your favorite player to watch so far this preseason?
Oh man, I feel like we haven't seen too much from him, but I'll tell you this. I was excited. That's Graham Barton. Since the day we got him, I was pretty hyped. And I know Zach's got that face. All right, but I'll have you know, Zach, I don't know what exactly it is, but there's some random website that you can actually watch like condensed game replays. And actually, these last 2 weeks, I've been watching the condensed game replays. And I'll tell you this, he's been killing it compared to Robert Hainsey, okay? I think Hainsey, they either, maybe he needs to move to guard because he cannot cut it as an NFL center. I can see the difference pretty big between Barton when he's in and when he's out. I mean, it's only a couple snaps and all that. I could go on and on, but I won't. But other than Barton, I'll probably say just a sprinkle of the running back room. I just want to see, how Bucky's doing. I want to see if Sean Tucker can prove himself that, he's worth making that 53-man roster again. I mean, kind of the other studs who've been getting a little bit of action. But yeah.
So in those condensed game replays, I haven't been paying much attention to the offense.
Yeah.
I would be lying to you if I said I've been keeping an eye on Graham Barton. Has he been starting the games, or has Hainsey been starting the games?
No, he's been starting. He only gets like a couple snaps in, though. I mean, probably just one or two drives.
Oh, okay. So then he's against NFL.
Oh yeah, it's not too much, but I mean, it's just that I was kind of I was going back and forth, skipping around and looking for when Barton's playing, when Hainsey is, and I thought they were going to throw in Barton a little bit more in, but they didn't. But I mean, even week one as well. So yeah, I mean, I think they already had solidified that even before week two.
The second they took him in the first round, it was solidified.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you don't get a guy in the first round and then say, okay, yeah, you're going to be behind Robert Hainsey.
Welcome to the NFL, bud. I'm glad we took you first round. Sit behind our irrelevant starting center.
Our big man Rudy.
Oh man, big man Rudy. Robert Hainsey even went to Notre Dame. That's why
I said that.
Yeah, that's a foul way to do him. Oh man, poor Robert Hainsey. He's just getting eaten up on this show. In Robert Hainsey's defense, I think he will make for a very solid backup center.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
he'd be a good guard.
Yeah, he's completely fine in any of those roles. He was kind of thrust into the starting center position last year, sort of unexpectedly, and I don't think he was set up for success necessarily. So I know he's kind of easy to dunk on because he did struggle quite a bit last year, as did the entirety of the interior offensive line. But there's a reason they drafted one in the first round. There's a reason they drafted center in the first round, and that's it. So, hopefully he'll fill in nicely every now and then. But yeah, glad to see that Barton's stepping up and taking that role. But in worse news, Randy Gregory has been given his release. Him and the Bucs came to a mutual agreement. He's not going to play for the Bucs this year. So that kind of leaves a pass rushing spot open, and we'll get into that a little bit deeper into our second half of the episode, but just wanted to drop a little bit of news there. What are y'all's thoughts on this? I mean, were you surprised to see it? Just seemed kind of like a foregone conclusion at this point. Zach, I know you kind of called it earlier in the offseason when this all started bubbling up. You didn't think Gregory was going to play, and sure enough, he's not going to play for the Bucks this year. Mr. Treek, I'll start with you, man. What were your thoughts on the Gregory release?
Oh, I don't know. Just a bunch of kind of nonsense. It's rather sad to see this, and it really sucks that, they couldn't work something out. But from what I've heard, I think Todd Bowles is also saying that like he doesn't know anything about Randy Gregg's presence or anything. Like this guy,
Right.
like those kind of, he's become one of those like, have you seen me? Like little billboard posts, you get in like the newspaper or something. Because I think he's missing. Yeah.
Yeah, shout out. I
yeah.
hope he's doing okay. It seems
Oh
like
yeah.
he's going through a legal matter with the NFL or something. Like they're, I'm not really sure the specifics of it. I don't want to speak on that too deeply, but yeah, it was a tricky situation. It was kind of tough. Wish the best to him. Good luck, and yeah, it was just a tough situation. It sucked for everyone involved. Mr. Blaine, you got any closing thoughts on this Randy Gregory thing?
I mean, it's just weird. Like, why sign a contract knowing you're not going to show up?
Yeah,
You can't tell me he didn't sign that contract and then go, you know what? I don't think I'm going to go. Like, dude, why would you even? Because if I'm not mistaken, he was suing the NFL before he signed with Tampa.
I think so. Yeah.
Should have known. You should have known then that you were suing the NFL and weren't going to show up. Why even waste the time to sign up or to sign a contract if that's what caused it? And then for us to not hear anything about why it happened, like no one knows where he's at. No one knows if he's doing anything wrong. No one knows if he's been in the facility at all. It's just no one knows why he didn't show up. And then we go on to find out like my favorite thing that happened this week was Todd Bowles' little one-liner. You can't miss what you never had. Like,
Right. Yeah.
It's such a weird situation, and I don't know, irritates me a little bit. Like just being like, why would you even get off a little bit? Not that you were going to be a generational talent, but
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like we're talking about Randy Gregory, if it was like the Hassan Reddick situation in New York, is kind of strange for both parties. Like, I don't even know, like if Hassan was very upfront, like, hey, I want a new contract before that you trade me, like whoever you trade me to, I want to get re-signed. Like that's a whole separate issue, but it's not like he's an elite pass rusher at this point of his career, unfortunately. He is who he is, and he could have been maybe a solid veteran contributor, or maybe guiding the younger pass rushers, teaching them the ropes. But instead, that's all right. It gives more playing time to Diaby and Braswell, JTS, gives them more of a chance to do their thing. So silver linings. But if you look, yeah, I mean it's just if you're looking for Pro Bowl production, I don't know that Randy Gregory was going to be the the one to go. But if you think that this podcast is Pro Bowl quality, if that's what you're, then please go to the Best of the Bay. It's on Creative Loafing. We've got links in the description, links on our social media pages, wherever you want to go to find it. Yeah, if Musab is flashing that shirt, we could really use your help. We'd really appreciate you going and voting for us. It's under the entertainment section, and then you go to the best podcast section, and then I think we're towards the bottom because it's alphabetical. So I don't even know if you have to scroll, but it's RBLR Sports. You hit that, then you hit vote. You can do it once a day. We'd really appreciate it if you could take a gander on over there and help us out. So after the Best of the Bay little promotion there, we're going to get into the 53-man predictions. I kind of call this predictions, but it's more of just like going position by position, thinking like, hey, who's got a good chance of making the 53-man? Zach, I know you've got like a solid 53-man roster shelled out. That'll be awesome. So we can kind of work from that. But, it's supposed to be a, little discussion, a little bit of a, hey, who we got coming in. So we'll start with the big position, quarterback. It's kind of the most boring because, it's Baker Mayfield and then Kyle Trask or John Wolford. It doesn't necessarily really matter. There's not really a discernible difference between the two. So prediction: who wins QB2? That's kind of the big topic for this position because they have that emergency third quarterback rule now, right? So I think
he'll be the third stringer will essentially be on the practice squad, but can travel like something. I don't understand it completely, but like
it's a good rule though. I like it. It's
exactly.
because you don't want the San Francisco NFC Championship situation. That was nasty.
Yeah,
like I think we can all agree we don't want to see Christian McCaffrey lining up as quarterback, or I guess Rashad. I don't know who their emergency quarterback, would be, but yeah, definitely don't want to see that situation play out. So, who's the QB2 in y'all's eyes, Mr. Tariq? Is it Trask or Wolford?
I guess I'll just go Trask.
You're not super enthusiastic about it.
I don't. To be honest, they both are just rather mediocre. I mean, there was nothing special I saw from them, this past game, and I mean, yeah, whoever wins it. I mean, I just pray to God that Baker Mayfield doesn't get hurt because,
of course,
yeah,
I mean that's what
this not going to help us. Yeah,
right. Yeah, that's what makes this discussion so just kind of black because neither one of them are going to be very good. So whether you go with Trask or Wolford, it's kind of tough. But Mr. Blaine, what about you? Are you Trask train or are you Wolford? Are you going to passionately be a John Wolford fan for this quarterback?
So that's what's weird about it. Like if I had in my mind, I'm taking Wolford over Trask.
Really interesting.
List I have Trask down because Trask is a second round pick.
Right.
He's got to be there at this point. Like as dumb as that sounds, I think Wolford is better. I don't think either one of them is a starting quarterback in the NFL at any point ever.
For sure.
I think Wolford is better and he fits the system better. He is from that LA system. But I think like going in the minds of the GM and just being on Tampa's staff, I'd be like, Trask has to be our guy because we spent a second round pick. We don't want to admit that he flopped. Like, even though he has, it's hard to admit that. So I've got Trask making QB2 and then Wolford going to the practice squad and being the emergency QB.
All right. Well, you know what? I'll be the mixer upper. I'll be willing to die on the John Wolford as QB2 hill because it's such a low stakes hill to die on. I'll say John Wolford's going to be QB2 for all the reasons you just spelled out. I think that the whole second round pick label, like it's been 4 years now.
This is year 4.
This is year 4. Excuse me.
Yeah, because second rounders get
they get a 4-year contract. Yeah. So this is the last
in the second round.
Right. So this is the last year of his deal. They're going to let him walk. Like he might attach on to a practice squad after this year. I don't know. The second round pick label doesn't necessarily move me as much anymore. I don't think it'll move the Bucks at all. If they genuinely see Trask as being better than Wolford, then, God bless them. Good luck. But I think they'll go with Wolford just because of the familiarity with Cohen.
I hope they do. I think that's the better choice.
Yeah.
And that not hating on Trask, I just don't think he's an NFL caliber corner or quarterback. Like watching him throw the ball, I feel like I'm watching a JV football game. I mean, it's not exciting, and I mean Wolford's not much better, but something new.
Yeah, no, it's
different flavor of the week at this point.
Right, for sure. But we'll move on to a bit more of an exciting position group because there's a little bit of room for variety here, a little bit of room for some different outcomes. The running back room. Do they go with 3? Do they go with 4? If they go with 3, I think the odd man out, unfortunately, is Sean Tucker. I could be very wrong about that. And Zach, feel free to chime in if you disagree. But I think that they brought back Chase Edmonds for a reason. If they really had doubts about Edmonds as a running back, I think he'd be getting a little more run in preseason games. I think they see Edmonds as kind of a lock for this roster. So I think if they go 3, then Tucker's left out. But they could very well go 4 running backs. Mr. Tariq, what are your thoughts on this? You think they go with 3 or 4 running backs? And if 3, who's left off? And if 4, then we're all good.
Yeah, I was just gonna say 4, we're all good because I mean,
Right.
yeah, you made great points with the 3. I mean, yeah, there's a reason, why they haven't been, using Edmonds as of right now. I think they plan on keeping him, and then I mean, yeah, well, the who's left, is Rachaad White and Bucky. So yeah, you're always gonna keep those guys, and I don't know, man. You got to include Sean Tucker now in this situation. I feel like he's earned his stripes as well, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's tough because I really like Sean Tucker, but it's
Yeah.
easy to fall in love with kind of the preseason players. I know I said this last week a lot, and Tucker might unfortunately just be one of those guys. But if they give him a shot, it'll be really fun. Mr. Blaine, who's your official? You've got the whole kit and caboodle. So who's your
I don't have Edmonds making this team.
really? Wow.
Yeah, what do we need him for? Like, and I don't mean it in like a negative way toward Edmonds. He can't stay healthy. He's hurt right now. He missed practice for an undisclosed injury. So we look at it like that, and you go, what does he do good? He's a good pass catching back, right? He's not going to run anybody over. He's not that power back kind of guy. So he does what the two running backs in front of him do really well, in my opinion, which is Rachaad White and Bucky Irving. Why would we bring a third one that does the same thing? In my opinion, we bring three running backs into the season. It's White, Irving, and Tucker.
Interesting. I mean, that could very well be the case. He hasn't had, he's been banged up, like you said. But it's just interesting they haven't cut him by now. You know what I mean?
I agree with that, and this is one of those things where if they were to keep him, I don't think it's a him or Tucker. I think if Edmonds stays, we're going 4 running backs into the season.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay,
I would think it's either Tucker or Tucker and Irving and
Edmonds. I get you.
I feel like Tucker has come on this preseason. Like he's looked very, very good. We didn't see him last preseason because of or I don't think we saw him last preseason, or at least not very much because of his injury.
Familiar
We
refrain.
did see him a little bit. I just think that I don't think he.
It wasn't anything special.
Yeah.
So he's shown up this year and been very successful. Like looked phenomenal. But unfortunately, he's not going to take over White or Irving's spot right now. He's just not.
Mhm.
So I do think that he gets playing time this year, but it's not going to be like, we're going to see him as a running back trio of Tucker, Irving, and White. It's going to be he'll get mop-up duty. We'll see him in some plays here and there, but I do think he makes his team, and I think he has somewhat of a role on this team somewhere.
I would love it. I'm a big Sean Tucker guy. So that'd be a lot of fun for sure. I'm not opposed to 4 running backs, but I also see the value in just dispersing those roster spots to other positions.
I'm a proponent of 3 running backs and
totally.
someone on your practice squad.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not gonna argue too hard either way, honestly.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a difference of 1 roster spot. But now we get to the wide receiver room. I think there's kind of a core 5 with Evans and Godwin and Mack, and then Trey Palmer and Mr. Sterling. But some teams like to run 6 wide receivers. They could go with Rakeem Jarrett. Mr. Blaine, I'll throw it right back to you, my man. Who's obvious? I think I don't want to speak for you, but I'd imagine you have those first 5. But is there?
So I have us cutting Evans.
Right.
No. Evans, Godwin, Palmer, McMillan, and Shepard. Like you were spot on with those 5. I have us taking 7 receivers.
Wow. Okay.
And now, hear me out. 1 is more of a special teams guy. Like we're bringing him for his ability to return the ball.
Absolutely.
I've got us taking Ryan Miller and Cameron Johnson. He has been very good in special teams from what I've seen in practices, watching some of their training camp film. I think that he's kind of locked himself into a spot. And I think we run 6 and him for sure. Miller's kind of my outlier. Like I want him on the team and I could see him finding a spot. So I think we take 6 with Cameron Johnson and maybe 7 with Miller.
Interesting. All right, Mr. Tariq, how about you? Because I think Rakeem Jarrett was on the roster quite a bit last year, but he could very well be left off at this point because they brought in Sterling Shepard, and like Zach said, they need special teamers. They need guys that come in and do some things on special teams. So that's certainly an interesting point that I didn't really think about, quite frankly. So, Mr. Tariq, what are your thoughts on the wide receiver room?
Yeah, I mean, the first 5, I'm with it as well. I'm thinking more like 6. Now, I mean, Zach, you made some great points with our special teams. And, I mean, at first I was thinking Rakeem Jarrett, but, I mean, it all just comes down, you got to pick your poison. And I'm just thinking, I mean, how many did we have? How many have we had in in the past couple of years? Has it always been around that 5, 6? Have we
think
had
it's
7
I
before?
think we keep it around between 5 and 7 every year.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's usually
I
that.
gotcha. So yeah, I think I'll probably go with 7. I mean, Ryan Miller and Raheem Jarrett, I'd probably say are the two kind of best number 7 candidates, if anything. But I'm gonna lean towards 6 though. I just feel like I don't know. I feel like 7 just may be a little too much.
Yeah, I mean, and 7 is a big number, but it's also capturing the special teams play too. So I don't know. It'll be a really interesting situation to see play out. I do feel really good about their first 5. I'd feel pretty comfortable with any combination of those 5. Obviously Evans and Godwin, but any combination of those last 3, I feel okay with. So that's good news. I can't really think of a time when the Bucks had that kind of receiver depth since the Brady era, really since the Super Bowl team. So I think that's pretty exciting. So that should be a lot of fun to watch. But that brings us to the tight end room. Cade Otton, pretty solid. But then after that, it gets pretty dicey. Mr. Blaine, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this tight end room because the only names I could think of were I know they drafted Devin Culp. Obviously Payne Durham from last season and Ko Kieft, who's kind of emerged as a nice blocking piece. But what were your thoughts on this tight end room?
So I went with 3 tight ends going into the season.
Okay.
I've got us taking Otton. He's the clear-cut starter.
Sure.
Payne Durham has looked a lot more athletic this preseason than he did last season altogether. So I think he's taken that next step. I don't think he's going to surpass Cade Otton this year, but I think he's going to play a bigger role in our offense. And then I have us taking Culp over Keith.
Wow. Okay.
And nothing against Keith. I think Keith might be a solid practice squad guy. But I have us taking Culp because I think he offers maybe not as good run blocking ability, but in the preseason, we've seen him be very solid at run blocking. And I think he's more athletic and has the potential to be kind of an all-around tight end and not just a run block tight end.
Absolutely.
And I think Ko Kieft, that's the difference in those two, is that Ko Kieft is a very good run blocking tight end, but has the athleticism of Cody Malk. So he's not. We're not scared of him taking a deep route. Like it's not going to happen. So I've got us taking Culp as our 3rd tight end and Keith going to the practice squad.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of similar to the running back room. I mean, all these positions really, you could very well carry 4. Maybe they decide to sort of have the first 3 be the pass catching tight ends and then have Ko Kieft sort of, I know fullbacks are a dying breed, but maybe they'll just kind of think of Ko Kieft as taking up a fullback spot because they sometimes line them up back there in those certain formations.
And that's one of those things where it could very well, with me taking 7 wide receivers, if you take off Ryan Miller and put Ko Kieft, I wouldn't be shocked. Like
absolutely,
it makes sense either way.
Yeah, for sure. Mr. Treat, do you have any thoughts? Maybe you're a little bit higher on Ko Kieft or Payne Durham or Devin Culp. Maybe you're going to shock us and say that you think Ko Kieft is the starting tight end and he's this generation's Tony Gonzalez.
I would call you a liar.
That's fair. What are your thoughts on the tight end?
I'll probably say that we'll probably go 3. I think the 2 that are going to matter the most are Otton and Culp. And I think whoever is number 3, whether it be Payne Durham or Ko Kieft, it's just going to come down to what the Bucks, want to prioritize because they both bring, something different to the table. But that's about it, though. I don't know if we're going to go 4, though. And I'll tell you this. I don't think even, number 3 is going to be super relevant. They're just going to have to be a role player, if anything.
Yeah.
So you're putting Culp ahead of Payne Durham?
I haven't seen anything memorable. I mean, it's not like I'm watching every single game very closely, but there's something that doesn't just catch my eye. And I mean, same thing with Ko Kieft. The only thing I'm kind of rocking with a little bit with Ko Kieft is his run blocking ability. But if we have other kind of ways to focus on that run blocking, ability, then we don't need him, to be part of that 53 man. So I mean, we can just put him in the practice squad and. Hell, we can rock with Payne Durham at number 3, but even then, I mean, I think whoever is tight end 2, tight end 3, tight end 4, they're all just gonna be, I don't know, battling here, there, whatever. The only tight end that it's really gonna matter is K-Dot in this season. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed. That'll be
Yeah.
the ideal situation, of course. But I am a big fan of Devin Culp. I'm a big believer in his athletic ability. I think he's a little bit quicker and a little bit shiftier than Payne Durham. He might be able to do a little bit more after the catch than Payne Durham, and obviously Keeft. I hate that we keep picking on Keeft as an actual tight end, but he's just a role.
You have to put him in the position that he's in, and it's unfair to him because we're like, when we think of tight ends, you don't think of blocking tight ends as like a tight end. Like, you don't look at it that way, but you look at that position, they're a tight end. You have to judge them with the guys that make, 700, 800 yards a season, whereas he's probably the best run blocking tight end on the team, but you can't judge him like a normal tight end. It kind of sucks for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not super fun, but I think he'll be fine as long as he makes the roster, right?
There you go.
Yeah, so that's all there is to it, really. But now we move to the offensive linemen, and they actually do block full time. They're not like Keeft. They're not running out for passes, but there's the core 6 in my mind, which it might be the core 7, honestly, at this point, with Elijah Klein playing as well as he has, but. My first 6, you got to start with obviously Wirfs and Gadecki on the outside, and then Barton in the middle, and Mauk and Bredesen and Robert Hainsey. And then after that, it gets a little weird. It gets a little wishy-washy. So I had Klein and then Brandon Walton as sort of a backup tackle type of guy. But Mr. Treek, what are your thoughts on this offensive line room and how the Bucs proceed with this 53-man roster in regards to that position?
Yeah, I mean, I'm rocking with probably all the guys you mentioned: Gadecki, Cody Mauk, Barton, Bredesen, Wirfs, and I'm gonna go Hainsey and Klein. From there, I mean, we can go Justin School,
that's
Brandon Walton.
Absolutely,
those names are have been somewhat present in the past, but I don't know. We'll see though. I mean, what matters most is our starters, but hey, injuries happen and all that. So, fingers crossed, nothing bad happens. But I'll probably say, I think I'll probably just go with those 7.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident in their backup interior offensive linemen. I don't think there's a significant drop-off there, but there is a pretty sizable drop-off on the outside with Wirfs and Gadecki. I think that kind of concerns me a little bit more because, like you mentioned, Brandon Walton he's fine, but, you don't really necessarily want to see him taking a lot of snaps. So I'd be interested to see if maybe, God forbid, knock on wood, whatever you want to do, if Wirfs or Gadecki go down, maybe do they kick Mauk back out to the tackle position? I know he played it a little bit in college, so that's kind of interesting. But Mr. Blaine, how about you, man? What were your offensive linemen for the 53-man?
Yeah, so I mean, you guys nailed it. Wirfs, Barton, Mauk, Gadecki, Bredesen, Hainsey, Klein, and then I've got Walton as well and School. I feel like we're carrying 9 in. It seems like a lot, but I feel like offensive line is.
Offensive line is important. Yeah, it's an important.
It's very important to her, apparently.
For sure. I mean, she's freaking out about the thought of Brandon Walton.
Right, like, hey, don't forget Xavier Delgado.
That's right.
That's exactly what she said. How did you know?
Yeah.
Just feels like that's one of our most often injured positions. Like, it might just be a hamstring, but if it's the hamstring one week, it could lead to calf injury next week, and then we're going from one guy being out for a week to being out for 6 weeks, and you need someone to fill in for him. So that's why I have us taking 9 of them, and I wouldn't be shocked to see Delgado on the practice squad.
Yeah, he'd be a very valuable practice squad member for sure. But now we'll shift sides, go to the other side on the defensive side of the ball. And we'll start, with the obvious ones, get those out of the way with Vea and Golston and Logan Hall, Greg Gaines and Mr. Cansey. But then it gets a little trickier. I think Mike Green could insert himself into the mix. They signed Ernest Brown IV, who is kind of an interesting younger guy. I think he's 25 or so. So he could be kind of another interesting interior defensive lineman. Mr. Blaine, I'll throw it right back at you, my man. What are your thoughts on the interior defensive line position?
I've got us taking 5 in the 5 that you named right off rip. I think we're all pretty unanimous on those 5. With that being Vea, Hall, Cansey, Gaines, and Golston.
Okay.
I think we're a little light on D line after those 5. So if anyone goes down, that's when I think we start to have an issue. But there are people that I could, again, like you said, wouldn't be shocked to see Green make the roster. This is one of those positions where I found like 6 people could make the roster, and I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, I think Green is probably my favorite to make that 6th spot on the defensive line. But like you said, that first 5 is pretty good. It's a nice group. But, yeah, it does get a bit thin, as does any NFL team, obviously. But, Mike Green's a nice little throw in for the rest of this defensive line. Mr. Treat, do you have any other thoughts on the defensive line for this team?
No, I'll probably say, I'm rocking with all the guys that you already mentioned. I can't I could probably see us, probably, as Zach said, there's probably a couple guys that I wouldn't be surprised if they do make the roster. Just because, we've also had issues in the past with this D line, especially with our backups, so in that case, it's kind of like just the more the merrier, kind of a similar situation even with our offensive line. Things are going to happen, and it's kind of just, it all comes down to how much, damage control can we take care of. That's about it, though, for me.
Yeah. Interior defensive line, I think the starting positions are pretty locked in as opposed to the interior offensive line, which could be a little bit, they could change a little bit as the season progresses. But, the depth is certainly a little bit interesting to watch moving forward. And I'm super stoked to see how Cansey can capitalize on this second season, being fully healthy coming into the year. Just staying on the field for Cansey is going to be huge, and I'm pretty stoked to see what he can do fully healthy. But we'll move on to the edge rusher, outside linebacker position, whatever you want to call it. And I think there's kind of a group of 4 that's locked in with JTS, Yaya, Mr. Braswell, and Anthony Nelson. But then there's Jose Ramirez. There's also Marquez Watts, I believe. Please forgive me if I mispronounced any of these guys' names, obviously, but I think Mr. Watts' first name I might have mispronounced. But Zach, you have any thoughts on the edge rushers or any names I didn't bring up necessarily?
No, I have us taking 6 in, and you named all 6 of them.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got Diaby, Braswell, JTS, and Nelson, all locks in my opinion. Ramirez, especially after the 3-sack game. I know it's nothing crazy in the preseason, but he was decent for us last year as well. So I've got us bringing him in and Watts just as if that's more so because I do think our D line is a little worrisome if we get any injuries. So if you have Ramirez and Watts, who are, I think, solid pass rushers, I feel like it takes some of the pressure off of our D line, if that makes sense at all, in my mind. So I'd rather be heavy on outside linebackers and light on D line.
Interesting. Yeah, every team loves to employ. The 49ers and the Eagles do this better than any team in the NFL, although they obviously do it in a 4-3 in a different way, but they love to rotate in and out those pass rushers, just constantly just getting fresh bodies in there just to keep up the intensity and the ferocity of that pass rush. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. So for that reason, I wouldn't be surprised to see them carry 6, especially with the secondary being Zach's favorite topic, the secondary being what it is. So, that's certainly something interesting to look at moving forward. Mr. Tariq, did you have any thoughts on maybe anyone we didn't mention? Or maybe you're a bigger proponent for only carrying 4 outside linebackers? What are your thoughts?
No, I'm down to carry 6 just because, there's only so much we've seen from most of these guys minus Anthony Nelson. JTS, I feel like, he's due, okay, for a good season, but we'll see. Okay. Yaya Diaby. He's only got a year under his belt. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, new guy. I'm just saying, and Chris Braswell, rookie. So you gotta run with Jose Ramirez and Marquise Watts as well. Just because I think we should kind of lean towards that strategy, like the Eagles and the Niners a little bit. Kind of getting that more some of the fresh legs. But that's about it, though. I mean, again, our pass rush has been nothing really special, especially this past season. And if not, focusing on the D line, then we should just focus on our outside linebackers.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely not a bad proposition to have quantity. Obviously, you'd love to have quality, but the Bucks don't necessarily have very high quality on this at this position. So, going with the quantity approach might work out in their favor. And then we'll move to the interior linebacker spot. I think David and KJ Britt are really good and they're locked in. But after that, it can get kind of interesting with Servassier Dennis and JJ Russell. I think they'll carry 3. I don't think they need more than 3. But Mr. Treek, are there any names I didn't mention, or what are your thoughts on the Servassier Dennis versus JJ Russell versus third party candidate, if you will? What are your thoughts on that final third linebacker spot?
I mean, I want to see Servassier Dennis, of course. Running back. I mean, we've only just seen a very little, or barely anything, because of his injuries, and for me. I mean, yeah, I'm rocking with David, Britt, Servassier Dennis, and I just think that it could be a battle between Kalen DeLoach and maybe JJ Russell. I don't know why. It kind of caught my eye when they picked up Kalen DeLoach, but then again, I know JJ Russell. I mean, last year as well. I mean, he had a pretty solid preseason, and I mean, if you want to run it back with a guy who already has experience with our team and all that, then JJ is the man for you. But yeah, that's about it. That's all the guys I'm rocking with, though.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I like all those names. For that third spot. I'd be a little surprised if they carried 4. But Mr. Blaine, do you disagree? Do you have them taking 4 interior linebackers?
I do.
Oh wow. Okay.
I've
Lay it
got
on.
David, Britt, Dennis, and I'm not taking JJ Russell. Nothing against him. I'm taking DeLoach. I think that he's impressed me this preseason, and I've been hearing a lot of good things in the media, obviously. I think bringing in DeLoach as a backup, I'm all for it. And I'm going heavy on linebacker in this, and I'm not mad about it. David, Britt, Dennis, and DeLoach are a solid group of linebackers, I think.
Yeah, I'm definitely not upset having DeLoach even just as a sort of practice squad guy. But the Bucks have been very, very willing to give these undrafted type of guys a spot. They're very well, and DeLoach is an undrafted guy out of FSU. I'd be really excited to see them give him a third spot, or if they take the Mr. Blaine approach, a 4th spot. So yeah, that'll be something to watch for sure. And now we'll get to Zach Blaine's favorite spot. We'll go with the cornerback / safety thing. We'll kind of throw it together because some of these guys kind of move around a little bit. But Mr. Blaine, what are your thoughts on the D-backs of this room, or the defensive backs? The D-backs are a baseball team. What are your thoughts on the defensive backs for the Bucks?
It's such a fun group of guys, man.
Yeah.
I've got no, I don't mean that. Not even a little bit.
For sure.
I think your locks. You have locks, obviously. Dean, McCollum, Winfield, Whitehead. Those are and Tyke Smith. I think those are my only 5. Like, these guys are gonna make the roster without a doubt.
Interesting. Not Christian Eisen or Tavierre Thomas?
I have them both on my 53 man,
Mm-hmm.
but I think they're irreplaceable. What's the word I'm looking for? They could switch spots. Like, one of them could make it, one of them couldn't. They're both going to be playing the same position.
What about Hall from the Jets? Is he?
Yep. So my cornerbacks, I've got Dean, McCollum, Hall, Hayes, Funderburk, and Thomas.
Wow. Okay. So no Isaac.
So I don't have Isaac, but I have Izzian as a safety because that's where he's been playing.
Okay.
I know we're kind of doing defensive back. So I've got Winfield, Whitehead, Tyke Smith. I do have Merriweather making the team. And then Izzian as our nickelback. I'm hoping the starting nickelback. He played a very good nickelback last year.
Yeah, doing a nice job.
But I do think that's going to go to Tyke Smith to start the season. But we'll see.
Interesting. So you mentioned I'll just call him Thunderbird because his name's just so cool. The last corner you mentioned. Give me something on him. Why was he a part of that list?
So for me, it's more he is the undrafted free agent that I feel most confident in making the team. He's a solid corner who I think just didn't have enough exposure coming into the draft, and he's played very well in practices. Um, with that being said, couldn't tell you much about his past. I haven't looked into it. I don't know like what his college stats were, but I do think that he has potential to be a very good special teams player from what we've seen so far.
Gotcha. So what are your thoughts on like maybe and Mr. Tariq, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too. We'll start with you. So what are your thoughts on maybe a guy like Keenan Allen or any of the Andrew or Josh Hayeses of the world? Do you think any of those guys have a shot to maybe sneak into that bottom of the depth chart for the cornerback room, or are you kind of sold on the guys that Zach Blaine mentioned?
Oh man, honestly, this cornerback safety room, it
It's
reminds
thin.
me of when I go to the grocery store and you see like 3 or 4 really nice looking, good looking bananas, and then all the other ones are just like those super just rotten, like they got a bunch of black spots on them. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
ouch.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, I painted a picture in your head, or
For
maybe
sure.
you don't want that picture in your head. But listen, look, we're gonna rock with the obvious ones. Okay, yeah, Dean, McCollum, Winfield, Whitehead. Yeah, I mean, based on what I've seen, yeah, you got to go with Bryce Hall. I'm gonna go with Izzian, Kayvon Merriweather. I mean, you got to go with Tyke Smith, and oh man, now I feel like I'm dropping a lot of names, and then Keenan Isaac. I guess you just got to maybe, if possible, squeeze him in. But those are my guys. I mean, there really hasn't been anything super special that's kind of stood out to me for any of these kind of backups. Matter of fact, it's been rather, if you really want me to be honest, I think it's been kind of embarrassing to see what our backups have been able to do or not been able to do. I mean, we got cooked up, by the Jaguars, and it was a little bit painful to watch at times. I'll tell you that. But again, I mean, I don't want to say the more the merrier because I feel like we need to focus on the quality, but quantity also may be something on the table based on past experiences with injuries. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, they faced off against former NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year Mac Jones in Jacksonville, whatever that's worth at this point. But yeah, it was tough to see him do his thing and kind of carve through that Bucs secondary. Yeah, I'm not against all that. I think the bottom of this cornerback / safety room is very much up in the air. I don't really have any solid answers, but yeah, a lot of the names that we've mentioned. And then maybe someone comes out of nowhere. Maybe they bring in a veteran free agent that we're not thinking of, Patrick Peterson or something like that. That would be interesting too. But yeah, I mean, we'll definitely have to see how it all plays out. And then, we'll just round it out with kicker and the punter, Chase McLaughlin and Jake Camarda. So that brings us to the end of our 53-man preview and this episode. We really appreciate y'all for sticking around with us. Mr. Blaine and his lovely daughter Hazel and Mr. Tariq. And we really appreciate y'all tuning in. Definitely give us that like and subscribe and that follow if you liked what you heard. And if you want to hear more from us, we'll be back at you next week after this final preseason game. We'll be talking that preseason game and we'll be finally getting into some real Bucs football because it's right around the corner. It's coming soon and we're really excited for it. So definitely stick with us and we'll have some great content coming at you every week. So as always, thank you so much for tuning in and listening and sticking around. And go Bucs.
Go Bucs.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.
Hey,